My name's Jake. I'm 38 years old, and I work as a systems architect. Mostly back-end stuff that most people's eyes glaze over when I explain. For the past 10 years, I've been at the same firm, and until recently it was a full-time in-office position downtown. You know the routine, commute, coffee, code, commute again, repeat. But earlier this year we went hybrid. Partly for budget reasons, partly because the higher-ups finally realized we could do 90% of our jobs in sweatpants and still meet deadlines. Now I work from home 3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. At first, I didn't tell many people outside of work, not because I was keeping it a secret, but because it didn't feel like a big deal. Elise, my wife, was vaguely aware, but I'm starting to think she didn't really hear me when I said it. Either that or she forgot. Both are kind of worse than the other, depending on how you look at it. We've been married for 6 years. Together for 8. We met at a friend's wedding and hit it off during a terribly awkward group dance. We got drinks afterward, just the two of us, and spent the night talking about movies and how much we hated wedding cake. It was easy in the beginning. She was this sharp, driven, spontaneous person. Always had ideas. Always smiling about something. I fell for her fast. And I thought she fell just as hard. Lately, though, I don't know. We've been off. At first I thought it was work. Elise has been on this massive client project at her marketing firm for the last few months. Lots of long nights. Lots of meetings that suddenly ran late. Started gradually, coming home past 9, skipping dinner, forgetting plans. Then the distance crept in. Eye contact faded. So did the little rituals. Morning coffee chats turned into cold silences and separate commutes. She started showering at odd times, wearing perfume on Tuesdays. But still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. People go through stuff. Life gets busy. We all coast sometimes, right? Then came Friday. She was getting ready earlier than usual, fluttering around the bedroom like she had somewhere to be. I was working from the upstairs office, fixing a database migration that had gone sideways. She popped her head in and said she was heading out for a farewell lunch for a colleague who was leaving the firm. I gave her a distracted cool and waved her off, barely glancing away from my screen. She kissed me on the cheek. Her lipstick left a faint red print, and I remember thinking it was unusual. She hadn't worn lipstick in weeks, not even when we had dinner with her parents. About 20 minutes after she left, I realized I'd left my sunglasses in her car. Not just any pair. These were prescription sunglasses I keep in the glove compartment because I'm forgetful and light sensitive. I figured I'd just grab them real quick. Her office wasn't far, and I had a break in my schedule. On my way out, her tablet buzzed. She must have left it behind on the kitchen counter. Normally, I wouldn't even glance at it, but the screen lit up in plain view. Reservation confirmed. Maribel's on Main. Table for 2 to 12:45 p.m. Maribel's. That hit me like a jolt to the chest. Maribel's isn't just some chain restaurant or afterthought lunch spot. It's the place Elise and I used to go for special occasions. Anniversaries. Birthdays. 1 year. She even surprised me with a reservation there after I landed a promotion. I hadn't been there in over a year. I stared at the confirmation on the screen. It wasn't from her work email. Came from her personal one. The notification flashed for just a second before fading, like it hadn't meant to be seen. But I'd seen it, and something about it made my stomach twist. Could have called her. I could have texted, "Hey, you left your tablet. Also Maribel's?" But I didn't. Instead, I drove there. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe that I'd see a group of coworkers at a big table, laughing over drinks, toasting someone's goodbye. That I'd feel stupid and paranoid and go back home wondering what the hell got into me. But what I saw was worse. Maribel's has these floor-to-ceiling windows that give you a clear view of the dining room if you park on the side street. I stayed in the car at first, heart pounding like I was about to commit a crime. Then I got out and stood across the street, watching through the glass. Elise was already there, sitting at a small corner table. With someone. A man. He was wearing a tailored navy suit. Crisp, modern, clearly not off the rack. His hair was neatly combed, and he had the kind of confidence that made him seem familiar even though I had no idea who he was. They weren't sitting across from each other like colleagues might. She was angled toward him, legs crossed in his direction. Her hand was resting lightly on his wrist as he spoke. They were laughing, leaning in close like whatever they were sharing was private. Int asterisk mate. She wore her green wrap dress, the one I bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago, the one she hadn't touched in months. She had on heels, her hair curled just a little at the ends. She looked radiant, not in the way you look going to lunch with coworkers, in the way you look when you want to be noticed. I watched for about 10 minutes, long enough to see her brush something off his collar, long enough to watch her toss her head back in a laugh I hadn't heard in ages, long enough to see the waiter bring the check and her trail her fingers across his forearm in a way that made my throat tighten. Then I left. I didn't storm in. I didn't snap a photo or demand answers. I just left, got in my car, drove back home with my sunglasses still in her glove compartment. That evening, she came home around 6:30, said traffic was bad. She looked relaxed, said the lunch had been nice, but dragged because everyone was telling stories. I asked who all was there casually while I stirred the pasta. She didn't flinch. "Oh, just a bunch of folks from the office," she said, waving her hand. "You don't know them." I was mostly with Kara and Joel. Kara and Joel. 2 names I actually did know. Kara just had a baby. Joel was openly gay. Elise knew that I knew that. She was padding the story, and she was so calm about it, so convincing. She complimented the pasta, asked about my day, told me about a funny TikTok her friend sent her. She wasn't trying to avoid suspicion. She truly believed I had none. That was the part that really got me. Not the man in the suit. Not the hand on his wrist. Not the laugh that wasn't mine anymore. It was how easy the lie came out of her mouth. How normal it felt for her to lie to me. And how I just nodded along, pretending I hadn't seen a thing. After that day, things started falling into place, but not in the satisfying way puzzles do. It was more like noticing cracks in drywall you thought was smooth, realizing they'd been there for months, even years, but you only now let your eyes actually focus. It's funny how your brain works when it wants to believe everything's okay. All the red flags I'd ignored, they weren't subtle. They were right there, waving in my face like parade banners, and I kept telling myself they were confetti, like the Friday strategy meetings she always had. They started months ago, claimed they were part of a client initiative, some campaign that needed late-night revisions. I even admired her hustle, brought her takeout once or twice, thinking I was supporting my hard-working wife. I remember she used to text me, so tired, going straight to bed, after those nights, and I believed her. Now I was wondering where exactly those beds were. Then there was her phone, always on silent, always flipped face down. I used to tease her about it, ask if she was trying to protect national secrets. She'd laugh and say, "No distractions." But over time, it stopped being funny, especially when she'd get those phantom notifications, screen lighting up, her eyes darting toward it like a reflex. Sometimes she'd even leave the room to answer, like she suddenly remembered she needed privacy in a one-bedroom home. And the names that came up when I did catch glimpses, contacts with titles instead of names. VP Marketing or Project Lead John. No last names. Nothing stored like a regular friend. I convinced myself it was a new work contact system. But honestly, it felt like she was labeling people by plausible deniability. One night a few weeks ago, I was dozing in the back seat of the car while she drove us back from her sister's place. She took a call on speaker, probably forgetting I was half awake. A man's voice greeted her, casual at first, then said something that made my skin prickle. Still thinking about the other night, she immediately switched to French. Elise doesn't speak French. At least not with me. I played dumb. Didn't even flinch. She ended the call 5 seconds later and told me it was a client from Quebec. Asked if I wanted to grab ice cream. And I said yes, because what else was I supposed to say? Looking back, there were dozens of moments like that. And once you start thinking in reverse, you can't stop. You spiral. Every memory becomes an interrogation. You become both detective and fool. Like the necklace. Elise had this silver pendant I gave her 3 years ago. She used to wear it every day, slept in it, showered in it, claimed it was her anchor, her word, not mine. One day, I noticed she wasn't wearing it anymore. I asked, and she said the chain broke. 2 weeks later, I found it back in its box, chain intact, like it had been carefully returned rather than forgotten. I remember standing over the box, staring at it, feeling like I just walked into a scene where someone had rearranged all the furniture slightly out of place. Nothing big, just enough to make you uneasy. Then there were the clothes. Elise always had a sharp sense of style, but something shifted. She started dressing up for work like it was a fashion show. Heels on Tuesdays, perfume on Thursdays, blazers that hugged her in ways I never remembered. I figured she just wanted to feel good. Who was I to question that? But it wasn't about feeling good. It was about being seen. And then there were the random days where she'd come home glowing. Not good day at work glowing. I mean lit up, eyes bright, lips curled in a secret smile. I'd ask what happened, and she'd shrug it off like nothing. Now I think I know what it was. Those were his days. Even our arguments started to change. Elise stopped fighting back. No more sarcastic comebacks, no more passion. Just nods and quiet retreats. At first, I thought we were maturing, learning to let things go. But no, she just didn't care enough to fight anymore. The silence wasn't peace. It was disengagement. There was one night that stuck out, long before the restaurant incident. She came home tipsy, humming some song I didn't recognize. She kissed me on the forehead and said, "You're too good to me." I laughed, told her she was drunk, but she got quiet after that, pulled away a little too fast. I remember watching her disappear down the hallway, wondering why that kiss felt like a goodbye I wasn't supposed to notice. Now, it all makes sense. It makes sense why she started locking her work laptop, even at home. It makes sense why she'd never leave her phone charging in the living room anymore. It makes sense why our shared calendar suddenly had missing entries, gaps where she used to log everything. She wasn't just distracted. She was compartmentalizing. I even remember a time I offered to drop her off at work after her car had a flat. She declined instantly, said she'd Uber. "Don't worry, babe. It's out of your way," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were flickering, like she was calculating. I watched her get in that Uber through the blinds. She looked back at the house before it pulled away. And I swear to God, it was the look of someone living two lives. What K***LS me isn't just the lies. It's how practiced she became. The ease of it, the rhythm, and how I enabled it by looking away, by choosing comfort over confrontation, by assuming love was enough of a shield. It wasn't. The night after the restaurant, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, watching her sleep beside me. Her breathing was slow, peaceful. She looked innocent, like the woman I married. And I hated myself for wishing that version of her still existed. My thoughts spiraled for hours. I kept trying to build a timeline in my head, placing each memory like a pin on a map. When did it start? Who was he? Was it one person or more? Was it emotional first, or physical right away? I wanted to believe she was manipulated or confused, or in some sort of personal crisis. But no. The longer I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't an accident. It was a choice, and she had made it over and over again. What's worse is how normal everything felt on the surface. Breakfast still happened. We still made jokes about bad commercials. We still argued about where to order takeout. It was like we were actors in a play she no longer believed in, just going through the motions while she rehearsed her lines with someone else backstage. And me? I was the prop. There's something devastating about realizing the life you thought was solid is actually a house of mirrors. Every angle warped, every reflection distorted. By Sunday, I stopped pretending everything was okay. I didn't ask her about the lunch again, didn't press for names or confront her with what I'd seen. I knew she'd lie, or worse. She'd admit just enough to make me doubt myself. And I didn't want half-truths. I wanted the whole story. And something deep inside told me I'd find it. Soon. Because Elise might have forgotten I work from home now. But I hadn't forgotten how to watch. And this time I wasn't blinking. A week after the lunch at Maribel's, Elise told me she had a work retreat. Just a weekend. she said, slipping her toiletries into a little canvas bag. Out in Sedona, that spa resort with the hiking trails. Remember? I nodded from the doorway like a man watching a memory dissolve. Of course I remembered. We'd gone there 2 years ago. A weekend getaway that turned out to be more about her catching up on emails than hiking red rock trails. Still, we'd laughed, slept in late, got matching bathrobes. It was the last trip I remember feeling close to her. Like really close. She packed light, more than she would for a basic team-building event. I noticed the silk robe she never wore anymore folded neatly next to her sandals. I didn't ask questions. She was too composed, too casual. Asking anything would have made me look insecure. And I wasn't giving her that out. "You sure you don't want to ride?" I asked. She waved me off, zipping up her weekender bag. "Kara's picking me up. Early. Like, crack of dawn early. I'll be back Sunday night." Kara again. Always Kara. The night before she left, I barely slept. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the fan blades spinning overhead like they were ticking off seconds I'd never get back. Something didn't feel right. It wasn't just intuition. It was this pressure in my chest, like something under the surface was ready to erupt. At 4 a.m., Elise kissed my forehead and whispered, "Don't miss me too much." The front door clicked shut. I got out of bed 30 minutes later. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just needed something to do, something to prove I wasn't losing my grip. I started with her laptop. It was on the dining table, still plugged in from the night before. Normally, she never left it behind on trips, even short ones. She said she always needed it just in case. But not this time. It was unlocked. I didn't hesitate. I opened her browser and checked the tabs. 2 were work-related slides for some pitch and analytics dashboard. But the third was a reservations page. Not just any hotel, it was the Canyon Solace Spa Resort. A boutique hideaway. Remote. Expensive. And the booking wasn't under her work email. It was through her personal Gmail. I checked the confirmation. 2 guests. 1 king suite. Weekend package. Spa treatments, meal plan, wine pairing dinner. All inclusive. The kind of thing people book for honeymoons or anniversaries. There was a confirmation email in her inbox too. I clicked it open. There were add-ons listed. A couple's hot stone massage and a private sound bath session. My stomach twisted. I opened her banking app next. The login was auto-filled. She wasn't exactly subtle. I scrolled through the latest transactions. There it was. Canyon Solace, $1,144. 73 posted 2 days ago. The dates matched the weekend. She'd paid for it herself. No company card. No travel reimbursement. No work retreat. She was going away with someone. And she was paying. I leaned back in the chair, numb. The weight of it pressed against my chest like gravity was different in the room now. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, staring at the screen. I kept refreshing the page like the details would somehow change. They didn't. Then, by some cruel twist of fate, or maybe a strange kind of mercy, her phone's photo album synced to our shared cloud. She must have forgotten the autosync was still on from when I helped her reset it last winter. The photo appeared without warning. She was standing at a floor-to-ceiling window in a white robe, holding a glass of wine. The lighting was soft, like just before sunset. She was smiling at something outside the frame, but what caught my attention wasn't her expression. It was the mirror behind her. In the reflection, a man was standing. The same one from the restaurant. The same tailored haircut. The same smug, lean-in body language. He stood behind her, shirtless, with one hand on her waist and the other holding a wine glass. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at her, and she was glowing. The timestamp was from that afternoon. She'd only been gone 12 hours. I couldn't move. I just kept zooming in on the mirror. That tiny detail. The hand on her waist. The way her shoulders leaned into him. That kind of comfort doesn't come from a first-time mistake. It comes from repetition. Familiarity. From being chosen. The photo didn't scream. It didn't accuse. It just existed, quiet and still, and somehow that made it worse. She wasn't hiding pain. She wasn't conflicted. She looked free. I closed the browser, powered down the laptop, sat in the dark kitchen with nothing but the hum of the fridge and the aching sound of my own breathing. I stayed there until morning. The weekend passed in a blur. I didn't eat, didn't sleep much either. I kept running through it in my head, trying to imagine what she was saying to him. What lies she told to make it feel okay. What stories she'd have waiting for me when she came home. I didn't know what I'd do when she walked through the door. Sunday evening, like clockwork, she returned. Hair windblown, skin flushed, a small bag of lavender soap in one hand, the kind they hand out at spa gift shops. She kissed my cheek like she hadn't just been with another man in a bed we were supposed to share someday. She told me she was exhausted. The retreat had been full of exercises and lectures. Draining, she called it. I nodded. She didn't notice the stillness in me. Or maybe she did and was too good at pretending not to. That night, she curled into me like everything was normal. And I let her, because in that moment, I realized something worse than betrayal. It wasn't just that she was lying to me. It was that I had no idea who she was anymore. The woman I married, the Elise who used to write notes in my lunch bag and send me memes at 3 a.m. She was gone. And in her place was someone who could disappear into a weekend of silk robes and spa packages and come back without missing a beat. I stared at the ceiling as she slept beside me, her breathing steady, peaceful. That photo, that mirror, it wouldn't leave my head. It was the reflection that told the truth. And now that I'd seen it, I couldn't unsee it. I wasn't going to ask her about it. I wasn't going to beg for an explanation. I was going to wait, watch, gather every piece of who she'd become. And when the time came, I'd leave her with something even heavier than guilt. I'd leave her with the silence she taught me how to survive in. I didn't confront her. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not the morning after that. I didn't ask where she'd really been, or who the man in the mirror was. I didn't mention the hotel receipt, or the bank charge, or the photo still synced quietly to the cloud she probably forgot we shared. I didn't even look at her differently, at least not in any way she could see. I made coffee, folded laundry, answered her questions with short replies, nodded in all the right places, smiled just enough to pass. She was so wrapped in her performance that she never noticed I'd stopped playing my part. Elise thought I was quiet because I was busy. She thought I was tired from work, that I was deep in some back-end problem that demanded every inch of my focus. She kissed my shoulder as she passed behind me one evening and said, "You've been so quiet lately." I wanted to laugh, but I didn't, because silence was the answer she gave me first. And now I was giving it back. That Friday, I packed a bag. I didn't slam drawers or storm around the house. I folded everything slowly, with the same precision I used when debugging a broken script. Steady, mechanical, methodical. A few shirts, my laptop, phone charger, and a copy of Siddhartha I hadn't touched in years. The old duffel bag zipped shut like it had been waiting. I left early, just before she got home from work. No note, no dramatic goodbye. I just walked out, checked into a cheap roadside motel in Prescott. One of those older ones with pine trees out front and a sun-faded sign that flickered like it didn't know what time it was. The walls were thin. The heater whined when I turned it on. The shower took forever to get warm. But it was quiet. It was mine. That night, my phone lit up with a message from Elise. "Hey, where are you? You didn't say anything this morning. I figured you were just at the office late. Let me know if everything's okay." I stared at it. Did nothing. A few hours later, another message came in. "Jake, are you all right? Seriously, you're freaking me out. Please call me." Still, I said nothing. Her silence had once made me question my own sanity. I figured I'd return the favor. The next day, the messages shifted. Longer. Messier. They started at "just talk to me," and slowly unraveled into "I'm scared something happened," and "please don't shut me out." By the third day, her voice replaced her texts. She left voicemails. The first few were steady, then shaky. By the fourth one, she was crying. "Jake, I don't know what's going on, but please just let me explain," she whispered into the speaker. "Please don't do this. I love you." I listened, then deleted it. I didn't feel rage, or heartbreak. I didn't throw the phone or scream into a pillow. I felt tired. Bone-deep, soul-level exhaustion. Like I'd spent the past 6 months running through sand, pretending the floor wasn't falling out beneath me. The motel bed was lumpy and stiff, but that night, I slept for 8 straight hours. First time in weeks. I didn't tell anyone where I went. I didn't even post online. No cryptic quotes. No starting over selfies. No status updates. Just radio silence. There's something underrated about being unreachable. It makes you feel sovereign. Whole. Like your life is finally yours again. I stayed in Prescott for a while. The town was quiet, all old bookstores and antique shops and diners that still used paper menus. Nobody knew my name. Nobody cared why I ate dinner alone. I bought a notebook from a corner shop and started sketching things. Old neon signs, the mountains, even my own hands. I hadn't drawn in years. Elise used to love my sketches. Used to frame them. Used to say my hands told stories without needing to write a word. Then she stopped asking me to draw. I hadn't even noticed when she stopped. After a few days, I called an old colleague who now taught at a small technical college near Phoenix. I told him I needed a change. Something part-time. Something slow. He said he could get me in to teach a systems design course. Nothing flashy. Just enough to stay busy. "I'm surprised," he said. "You always seemed so locked into the city life." "Not anymore," I told him. And I meant it. I found a short-term rental outside town. Modest, shaded by pine, with a creaky deck and a view of the stars. Smelled like cedar and dust, and I didn't mind. I bought second-hand furniture. Cooked my own meals. Learned how to sleep without waiting for Elise to come home. Or wondering who she was coming home from. The messages slowed. First daily. Then weekly. Eventually, she stopped texting altogether. She must have realized I wasn't coming back. Or maybe she was just tired of talking to a void. It didn't matter. I got a new phone. New number. Didn't forward a thing. Closed the old cloud account. Deleted the photo from Sedona, though it still burned into my brain like it was tattooed on the inside of my eyelids. One morning, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name in handwriting I hadn't seen in weeks. Inside was a note. No words. Just a folded piece of paper and a single line of numbers. A login and password. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But curiosity got the better of me. I logged in. It was a savings account. A hidden one. Opened in her name, but with small deposits going back nearly a year. Amounts that wouldn't be noticed. $20 here. $50 there. $200 one month. The balance was over $6,000. There was a second note attached, scanned in the documents folder of the account. This was never for him, or for leaving. It was guilt. Do with it what you want. No name, but the handwriting was hers. I transferred the balance to my own account. Closed the one she'd created. Not because I wanted the money, frankly I didn't, but because I didn't want anything of mine living in her shadows anymore. No response. No thank you. No closure. Just silence. And for once, the silence didn't feel like punishment. Felt like truth. The kind of truth you don't need to explain. People assume grief looks loud. Crying. Screaming. Angry music and shattered plates. But the worst kind of grief? It's quiet. It's empty coffee mugs. It's walking into rooms and forgetting why. It's hearing your own footsteps too clearly. It's realizing you can't remember the last time someone said your name like it mattered. But silence also taught me something else. Taught me how to breathe. How to enjoy small things again. Like how the trees outside my new place rattled in the wind, or how my tea stayed warm longer in the mug I bought from that roadside shop. How a simple, unremarkable life could be exactly what I needed. One morning, I stood on my porch and realized I hadn't thought about Elise in 2 days. Not even once. And when I did, it wasn't with anger or pain, just distance, like a story I'd finished and set back on the shelf. There were no fireworks, no dramatic final showdown. She never showed up at my door. She didn't beg. She didn't explain. And I didn't ask. Because sometimes the loudest goodbye is the one you don't say at all. 9 years. That's how long it had been. 9 years since the motel. Since the silence. Since I walked out of the house that Elise and I once called home, and never walked back in. It's surreal how life stretches in front of you after something like that. How you think it'll feel hollow forever, but eventually, the emptiness makes room for other things. New routines, quiet victories, small joys that feel bigger because they're yours alone. After Prescott, I moved again, this time to Phoenix. Got a little house near campus, the kind with peeling shutters and a lemon tree in the backyard. I taught systems architecture at the community college full-time, and honestly, I liked it. The students didn't care what car I drove or how many digits were in my salary. They cared about code that worked. It was simple, honest. Over time, I rebuilt a version of myself I didn't know I was missing. I never remarried, not because I gave up on love, but because I stopped chasing the version of it that hurt. I dated here and there, met people, had good conversations, but nothing that pulled me all the way back in. And that was okay. Peace looks different than I thought it would. Quieter, softer around the edges. Then one Tuesday morning it happened. I was sitting in a cafe near campus, a local favorite with overpriced muffins and permanently wobbly tables. I liked it because no one ever rushed me. I could grade papers, sip burnt coffee, and people watch without anyone asking questions. It was packed that morning. Some kind of networking event was happening in the back, all business suits and clunky laptops. I wasn't paying attention until I heard the laugh. That laugh. Controlled, practiced, polished like a presentation but with just enough fake warmth to feel like it belonged in a room full of people trying too hard. I looked up, and there she was, Elise, shorter hair, a sharper haircut that framed her jaw like she meant business now, a navy blouse tucked into fitted slacks. She was leading a table full of people. Young professionals, all nodding and scribbling notes like her words meant something profound. She gestured confidently, that same left-hand flip she used to do when she got excited. I hadn't seen that hand in nearly a decade. I didn't feel my chest tighten. I didn't panic. I just watched. She was mid-sentence, glancing around the table, eyes full of spark and polish. Then her gaze swept the room and landed on me. Her whole body froze, just for a second, but it was long enough. Her mouth stopped moving. Her eyes locked onto mine. I watched the recognition crash into her like a rogue wave. Her pupils widened. Her jaw clenched. Color drained from her face so fast you'd think she'd seen a ghost. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. She knocked her chair over as she stood. The noise made heads turn. Excuse me, she muttered to her table, already moving toward the exit. Her voice cracked, barely audible. She walked fast, her heels clipping against the tile like a drumbeat. One of her colleagues called after her, Elise, but she didn't stop. The bell over the cafe door jingled. And then she was gone. Gone like she had something to run from. I sat there, still holding my red pen above a half-marked assignment. My coffee had gone cold. No one said anything to me. Her group murmured, confused. One guy looked like he was about to follow her, then thought better of it. After a few minutes, the meeting resumed in low tones. I finished grading my stack, paid my tab, walked out the back door. I didn't need to chase her. Her reaction told me everything. There was something deeply satisfying in that moment. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I needed closure. But because for the first time, I saw her without the filter of memory. Not as the Elise I married. Not the Elise who laughed on anniversaries or cried during dog commercials. Not the woman who'd once worn my hoodie for 3 days straight because it smelled like me. This was the Elise who lied with a straight face. Who kept a second life in the mirror. Who buried me in silence and then painted over it with ease. And she hadn't expected to be remembered. But I did remember. Everything. I walked back to my truck, parked under a jacaranda tree, blooming purple petals all over the windshield. The breeze was warm. Traffic was starting to pick up. And my heart rate, steady. Back home, I sat on the porch for a while, watching the sun creep down the side of the lemon tree. The air smelled like dust and citrus. I thought about her, about how, even now, she had the power to walk into a room and change the temperature. But not because I missed her. Because I didn't. Not even a little. I didn't wonder where she'd been or what she'd told herself to get through the years. I didn't care who she was now or whether she had someone new or someone after new. I didn't wonder if she ever looked me up online or reread the last text I never sent. She had made her peace with what she did. But she hadn't made peace with me seeing her again. And maybe that's the difference between guilt and regret. Guilt makes you run. Regret just watches and nods. That night, I didn't think about her as I made dinner. I didn't check my phone for messages that would never come. I didn't stare at old photos or wonder what might have been. I read. I slept. I woke up to birds pecking the window screen and brewed coffee like I always do. Life moved forward, just like it always does. But a few days later, something came in the mail. No return address. Just my name, neatly printed in handwriting I hadn't seen since before the lies started. I almost threw it away. But curiosity has a funny grip on you when ghosts send letters.